Yeah, it's really unfortunate for him, and then finding himself in 18th now, he can at least look at the clock and be like, it's 1 hour 55 minutes, that gives me a bit of time to actually react to it, and he might can have a comeback, but it's bad compared to where he started, right? He wants to be completely at the different side of the grid, I would say, but for now he has to find himself in the beautiful green Lamborghini a bit further down the line.
Yeah, if we look at Season 2, Yuri Kastov had many highlight moments. He was close to winning a race so often, but it never really happened for him. And when we look at D'Amelio, it also shows, hey, consistency is key, right? You can make it into pro without ever winning a race. That's totally fine. Jody Sweersey will be happy with the start into the season. With the last 15 seconds, he's still first. Jan van der Heide will come across the line now for Sunshine Simsport. Let's see where he ends up on his 13th for now. Is there any improvement for him? There is. He actually goes on third, right in front of Nuno Pinto, who's now with Team Fordzilla, and that pushes Ferry Stanley back to 5th.
All right, time for me to step up. Wait, this isn't Forza? Off we go. Hockenheim ring, so kind of, I would say, home court advantage. Obviously, with this being Unreal 5, it looks already very good. It has good traction in the rear. It's like you could feel that the engine, like weight shifting in general, already feels very nicely.
So from the sands of the Middle East, we head to a particular place in Germany. And my next guest, you might know him from plenty of sim racing exploits, including the R Factor 2 Formula Pro Series, the GT Challenge, the GT Pro Series. He's also one of the more recognizable names on Nitro Nights, as we welcome Germany's René Buttler alongside. René and I have known each other for I think it's a couple of years now. I think back from your days at Studio 397. How are things?
Great, right? I mean, on both ends, I'm not working for Studio 397 anymore. As I was looking for a new challenge, but seeing them strive and bringing new content to the title is also great for me. So I would say works out for everyone.
It does indeed. Now, René is not only, in esports, commentators are known as casters, and René is one of the very few people that I know of that can actually cast in both his native language and also in English. So, which is quite a good skill. It's something that I need to strive towards at some point. Who knows?
You will get there, Alex.
but also René, for those that don't know, actually runs his own team that also not just races in the sim racing world, but also has been racing in real life, Buttler Pal Motorsport. René, first question here on Commentator's Corner, and thank you very much for taking the time, because we're actually recording this ahead of a Nitro Nights community race as we speak, which is happening in a couple of hours. How did you get bitten by the motorsport bug, and who were the big influences in that?
To get involved in motorsport,
or how you got bitten by the bug?
I grew up in Germany, right? My dad, I'm not coming from a motorsport family, but my dad was an avid F1 watcher. Saw every single race back then. Obviously, Michael Schumacher was still a big thing. So that's where it all started. So I watched all the Formula One races back then. Really got into GT cars and something like that. So I like cars that look a bit more like stuff I could see on the road than open wheelers nowadays. And from there on, like every little kid, I was dreaming about one day being an F1 driver. Spoiler, did not happen.
Yeah, true. So, Germany, we know, is the land of Schnitzel, Oktoberfest. Well, this is the stigmatism, and obviously
I've never been on an Oktoberfest. Just saying.
No, exactly. So people think that Oktoberfest lasts for a couple of days. Actually, it's a 3-week festival. Thank you very much. Schnitzel is a traditional dish, not just in Germany, but also in Austria, amongst other places. And of course, Germany is home to the legend that is the Autobahn. And if you haven't driven on it, where have you been under your rock for the last few years? But of course, where you're located at the moment, René, you're not too far from a very particular, famed, iconic racetrack in Germany, if memory serves me correctly.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much around me. A lot of countryside, hills, grass, and trees. But in between there's like this little country road that sometimes serves as a track that people might know out there. So yeah, it's like I'm living close to the Nürburgring Nordschleife.
Yeah, which you've also been on the legendary Touristfahrten, which we do see with the likes of quite a few people, quite a few celebrities within the YouTuberverse in terms of supercar people such as Shmi 150, Seen Through Glass, amongst others. They all have been around the Nordschleife in many, many different vehicles, including a G63 AMG as well, I might add. But how did you get involved in casting in terms of commentary? Where did you get your start from that?
Back in the days, around what is that, 2003, 2004. I was still heavily involved in Live for Speed, trying my best to actually stick with Niels Naujoks and other big names that you still hear nowadays, right? Or Danny Engels, who's an esports manager by now in the US. So I was racing in the Intel Pro Series, which was back in the days the biggest national championship we had here. So there was money on all the different positions. There were live streams back in the days, radio live streams even. So it's internet radio is still big. And at one point, I was invited to an interview by, I think the first one was NBC Giga, which back then was a channel here that only covered like gaming media, something like that, with an own studio in Cologne. Started that, clicked really well. And when they asked me after I did another show at ESL TV back then that existed already in 2004, the first version, I did a live review of Juiced, actually, if anyone remembers that, the competitor to Need for Speed back then. And from there on, I decided, you know what? I managed to get into the Pro Series. To be honest, I'll never win it. So I was really, my real target was getting into the Pro Series to one day be on a stream and have a lower third underneath a car in a design that I drive. Saying my name and my team, that's everything I wanted to achieve. So I had that. And I was like, all right, they're looking for someone that can actually commentate on these. And it's part of the TV shows. So I kind of switched sides while still competing, but not anymore in the Pro Series. And from there on, so basically since 2004.
2 seconds.
Just need to do that later on. It's just to be scanned.
Yeah, okay. All right. Sorry about that.
No
At least I can edit it out afterwards. So really, the next question after what I was saying was, how did you get involved in commentary? The next one is, who helped you get involved? And you sort of like being in the scene, it's sort of, it seemed like it was a natural progression from when you were saying like, because you and I have both commentated on Niels Naujoks, now with BS Competition, alongside the likes of Gregor Schill, Artur Kamara, amongst others, who myself and David Christie, we've commentated on when they were, we know that Niels is an absolute alien when it comes to Assetto Corsa Competizione, amongst other platforms. But that really sort of segues, what you said just then sort of segued really nicely into that question that I don't actually need to ask you, which is who helped you get involved? Because you being there in the scene, it's always about, like, you see a lot of casters from, like, say, Rocket League, for instance, who have been in the top echelon, the top third in Rocket League, and they've gone on to become casters. I mean, that just goes to show how closely knit the fraternity within esports it actually is, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we can't really compare that to nowadays anymore, right? Like back then we were competing with a lot less people. That's for sure. I would probably not make it into the Pro Series nowadays anymore. Looking at the grids, and maybe I'm just not the person that's willing to practice enough for that, to be honest. And I mean, you probably know from myself, we like to talk, right? That kind of leads one thing to another, and you would like to talk about things you're really passionate about. Obviously, I ventured in different genres in between, because back in the days, sim racing wasn't big. I mean, it's still not big next to mainstream esports, right? So by now I did Rainbow Six Pro League. I hosted the Clash of Clans World Championship on ESL One, PlayStation stage for a new presentation of games. So I did a lot of mainstream esports, with sim racing always being like, hey, that's mine. That's something I basically work on since before the sim racing term was born, right? It wasn't really a thing back then.
Yeah, very true.
It's different for people nowadays, right? Because all these structures are already there. I mean, today you get a commentator coming in and he's like, oh, they're not paying, I'm not doing it, which I can understand. It's work, right? And if you're good at something, you should be paid for your work. No problem there. But if you then compare that to how many shows, and I'm not just talking about online streams, I'm talking about studio shows back in the days, I did for absolutely free, just because there was no budget. There were no structures for that. And you were basically just there to say, hey, we want to do something for sim racing. I want this event to be cool.
Yeah. Right. So let's carry on with where we were. We were talking about, like you were saying, people back in the day when sim racing not being on the stage that it is now, where people, as you said, like yourself, were doing it for free. When I got into sim racing commentary in May 2020, I did it for a laugh because I thought, well, we're currently in this current situation. Maybe the situation isn't going to be around too long. And then I find myself being one of the more recognized real life commentators that has made the transition across that divide and has broken that glass ceiling to now become well known within sim racing. Not on the level of people like, say, Actual Vision, Lewis McGlade, who we've both worked with in person. People like, say, Luke, people like, say, Arjuna Kankapati as well from RaceBot. There's quite a lot of sim racing commentators out there. And it looks like there's, even Radio Le Mans, John Hindor, and Nick Damon. They made the transition to the virtual.
Did you had an interview with Actual Vision already?
No. That's coming up in a future episode. I have got that planned. So
I'm just wanting to see if he tells the story or not.
Luke, that episode's being recorded next week because
it's nothing bad.
No.
But I know who paid for his PC to actually switch commentary to PC.
There you go. That's another story for another time.
That was only toast and water for me for 2 months. But okay.
Yeah. So I mean, at the end of the day, the thing is that we are in a stage where sim racing, there is big money coming into sim racing now. There's a lot of prize pools where I think, what is it? The Ariadne Gitti Masters powered by EMBW Plus Mobility. They've got a €70,000 prize pool. There's a teams competition up and running for this season. They just had their first round of the championship at Brands Hatch, which I understand was a bit of a corker. But I always like, the thing is, because Renee and I are so busy, I normally try and get I want to talk about a funny moment. Now, I remember watching a certain young René Buttler doing car reviews, and your hair was a bit more wayward than what it is now. You've definitely become a bit more.
At least you found the car reviews and not the other ones.
Exactly. So at the end of the day, I mean, when you think about it, doing car reviews a pretty cool thing. But your hair, mate, it was all over the shop. It got a bit wild, a bit like Tarzan or something, hadn't it?
First of all, back then I didn't have to color my hair like I have to do now, right? Like I turned 34 in a bit more than a week. By now, all my hair, it's not just that. Basically, everything is gray, so it's colored. I'm all fake. Back in the days, that wasn't the case. And to be honest, while I was doing the car reviews, like I was working for a Motorvision, and then I worked with Speedheads later on, and then I did a few stuff myself. I didn't make a lot of money. I was still at the university, and basically it was enough to somehow get a bit of water and a bit of bread for real. That was plus the car I had, because I always had a sports car. I was willing to give everything away just to make sure that I have a sports car. And so there wasn't any money left. And that's no joke. I just didn't have the money to get a haircut. That's why on some of these videos, you see me looking absolutely wild, because the haircut was one of these things where I was like, you know what? You don't really need that to do all the other things. So rather save that money. And that's the real reason why that looks a bit stupid sometimes.
I mean, this is the whole point of Commentator's Corner. We have a laugh at our own expenses. My hair on multiple times has been completely wayward. I remember actually, funny enough, during the pandemic, and it was the first opportunity I'd had a haircut in 5 months. And I remember I posted on Instagram, and it was like you had the "So Fresh and So Clean" from Outkast song as that was happening, like before, and then "So Fresh," and I was like thinking, I'm making myself look like a complete and utter pillock here. But that's the whole point. They say that life is all about laughter, don't they, René?
Definitely. I mean, I have absolutely no problem with that. I had a lot of fun over the years in sim racing. I had some good laughs in commentary in general.
Yeah.
If you want to hear that, I don't know if you've got that much time, but I can give you 2 stories.
Hey, well, fill your boots, René. Fill your boots. That's what the whole point is.
When I switched for the first time from being a commentator to be a desk host, I went to Katowice in Poland and did the Arena of Valor tournament there in a bigger, like an arena studio in Katowice. And I happened on this desk and I had 2 guests and all that. I was quite nervous. Obviously, that was the first time for me being a desk host and being kind of in control of the flow of the show, right? Not just of the race as I would normally commentate on or the game, but instead of everything else as well and the breaks. So I was always trying to come up while talking with my end sentence to throw it into a break. So on my first attempt, like in-ear says to me, like, oh, you can throw into a break, like roughly 10 seconds, we count you down. And I start my sentence and I wanted to end on don't touch your browser, as in like, don't go anywhere, right?
Oh,
and instead,
yes.
Instead I said, don't touch your brother, which was a good laugh in the chat and in production, because they got back to me immediately, like they had into a break and it's like, did you just say don't touch your brother? Why should people do that? It's like, what? No, I said brother. Like, no, we rewatched it. You said brother. It's like, oh no. The chat was all crazy, like, oh, that's good to know. I will write that down. Not touching my brother anymore. That was fun. And then obviously that makes you nervous. Mm-hmm. So you're like, all right, next time I will nail this. No problem. So on the next break, I want to say, don't go anywhere. And then want to switch to stay with us. And while I start the sentence, it obviously ends up with don't stay with us. With production coming back to me like, why do you tell people now to knock? Just saying, if there's any future client out there, I improved, right? That is a long time ago. But yeah, that happened. And another time, actually years later, I worked with most of clients for many, many years, right? Did a ton of ESL shows, went with G-Loot and some other companies there, obviously Freaks for You and others, Sony especially. And then I had a show where I don't say who it was, but in the beginning of the show, they were like, oh, we can probably throw everything at you and you will still get it done, right? And I was like, yeah, for sure, right? It's like you're standing in the studio like, of course, nothing can stop me, man. And then the moment they count me down, 5 seconds to the start of the live show, they actually put porn on my in-ear. So
no.
For 5 minutes during the start of the show, I have like a really bad porn movie on my in-ear with like a bit of talking and a bit of dirty talking and a bit of moaning while I'll try to open the show. Like, welcome everyone to, don't even know what I did, man. And go through today's schedule and hear people laughing in the in-ear and the porn movie. But hey, no one realized on the show that was the main point, but it was good fun.
That just goes to show you when there is jocularity behind the scenes of any casting show or any live stream or LAN event or whatever, there is always someone that's going to try and pull a prank on you. And René, you got the full brunt. You got the double P right there. You got the porn prank put on you, mate. But moving on from the funny moments, it's really good to actually hear that, because that's the whole point. You get to understand situations that my guest has been in, and they'll tell them yourselves. It's better for them to tell you than for me to find out the story. And some of these stories I find out firsthand. Now, obviously, Germany is known for a plethora of racing talent across Formula One, World Endurance Championships, sports cars, single-seaters, whatever's. Do you have any particular drivers, not that you hold high on a pedestal, but drivers that are your favorites? Are there any particular characters within the German real-life community that have sort of irked your interest to follow their careers?
Definitely. Probably my first pick would be someone that most people won't know, and that's Moritz Kranz. Probably never heard of him.
I know of another Moritz who is a
Not
three-time, not Lorna, who is a three-time ADAC GT Masters esports champion, and is also racing the DTM trophy.
Yeah, he's now in real racing, just like Tim Heinemann, right? No, Moritz Kranz, I think he started doing like RCN and VLN here. He was also the first person to ever go on the Nordschleife with me. So back in the days, I always had sports cars, JDM sports cars. That was exactly my groove. And I was, for work, I was at the Nordschleife with my Evo, and I never touched the track because I was like, don't like it in sim racing back then, but it takes way too long. I like SL Classic from Live for Speed, like tracks that are as short as possible so I can see what I improve. Didn't like Nordschleife. It took way too long. And I was there like, yeah, but I would never go on that track. It was like, I think my fourth or fifth visit. It's like, I would never go on. It's way too dangerous. And Moritz back then was in VLN, I think, already. And he was like, you know what? I will sit next to you. We can do a lap, right? So we went out there with the Evo. I completely ruined my brake pads. Completely glazed afterwards. Horrible. Still a student, right? No money. It was horrible whatsoever. But he was next to me, and you go there, and really, you're like super afraid doing something. And he's like, "Yeah, so in my Cup Porsche, we got 235 here. You can be flat out over the jump." Like I said, I never really drove that track that much. Had no clue about it. You're sitting in the car like, "Yeah, dude, of course I will do that." Right? So that's how I met him, because we did a race room championship together. There was a race room offline event for the opening of the cafe on the Nürburgring. And he was taking part as well because he lived here. And nowadays, he's racing in the 24 Hours of Daytona. He was leading last year, LMP3, pole position qualification done by him, leading the race, but they got crashed out. Same this year, was horrible. The car was even on fire, I think, at one point. Didn't work well for him. He was racing last season GT3 AMG in VLN. He's now in GT Open. Okay. And he teaches people on the Porsche Cup in the US. So Sebring, Watkins Glen, all that stuff. So he does a lot of things, but he's a super nice guy. And he was here a few weeks ago practicing on my simulator because he doesn't have one. He likes sim racing and he does some events. I did an ACC event with him together, but he doesn't have any equipment. So he always comes around and then we do it here. And I tell you, if you ever invite Moritz Kranz for something like, what did we do? 12 hours of Spa on ACC, be prepared. He will ring your doorbell at 6:30 in the morning with like a notebook and everything, because he's really into Motec and all that, right? Because as a coach, he does that a lot. And then he just sits down for 3 hours in your rig, dialing in your setup, and is like, I never drove this, but I beat your time by 1.5 seconds. You can have a go now. So he's a great guy. He's a great guy to hang out with. He's an awesome racing driver. He's known as Ice Cold Moritz because he's like in the rain going from last to first, in the snow going last to first. Here on Nordschleife, he's incredible, and he switches so many cars, drives on 2 different cars during VLN, and wins on both. So he's amazing, but he's still not. I think it's obviously not like Lotterer or anyone else you could say below Sebastian Vettel.
Yeah, exactly. When you think of the amount of talent, like quite recently, we've got Pascal Wehrlein, 2015 DTM champion with Mercedes, has now finally won a Formula E race with Porsche Tag Heuer. So Glückwunsch, Pascal. And the amount of people that race in DTM, like say Mike Rockenfeller, Marco Wittmann, both who have won the title. René Rast. There's so many different drivers in Germany. It's like picking a straw out of the drink and saying, say if you've got a Stein glass, you've got a load of straws in there, you're going to pick one, no matter what it is. That's how much talent there is in Germany. It's ridiculous. Coming on from favourite drivers, and really, really good to hear about Moritz Kranz there, René. When you've actually met a racing driver, have you ever been starstruck when you've had that meeting? So like where you just gone like, oh my God, I can't believe who I'm just standing next to or who I'm in front of. Has that ever happened to René Buttler?
No, that's because I adore them for what they can do and everything and the talent, but I was never someone to really be a massive fan, like fandom for like musicians and stuff like that, right? That was never really my thing, because they're great. They're not God or whatsoever, right? True. They're just really good at what they're doing and they have talent, and that's great and all that, but they're still human, right? So I never really had that. I had obviously moments where I was shocked with people next to me. It's like I met a few drivers over my career. For example, once on a Formula E show, I actually, for whatever reason, I'm not looking good today if I tell you all the bad stuff, but I had so many shows in a year, like over 250, and there was just one mistake basically. But I said Juan Maria Lopez instead of Jose Maria Lopez the entire show.
Oh no!
And I'm going there, and I know his name because I met him previously on the WTCC back then.
Yeah.
And I was like, I have no clue how that happened. And I didn't even notice. So I want to end the show. It's a live show at Formula E in Santiago. I don't know, somewhere. And all of a sudden he steps to me, takes my microphone, and it's like, the bloody name is Jose Maria Lopez. And I'm still not connecting the bits because I didn't realize that I'd said it wrong. And production is just like, take the microphone. We need to end this because it's on live TV, right? Like not online. It's linear TV. So I'm like taking the microphone away again. And it's like, great show, bye-bye. And I was like, what happened to him? And I had his, one of his teammates, like not the driver, one of his like managers, mechanics, whatsoever, on the flight back next to me. And he had a horrible race. He was like, I think that's down to you like giving a bad mojo, basically, not knowing his name on the previous show. And I was like, okay, I'm really sorry that happened. And I had, and who's the Brazilian driver? Felipe Massa.
Oh, Felipe, yeah.
I had Felipe on the stage, also at Formula E a few times. And he tends to take my microphone off my hands and then speak Spanish, Portuguese. What is it?
Yeah, Brazilian Portuguese, because
so Portuguese more, to the crowd when we are somewhere where they speak that language, right? And I have no clue, so I always ask him something and give him like hold the microphone in his direction, and he takes it, turns around, talks to the audience for like 1.5 minutes. Every cameraman, production is like, take the microphone, do something, and I'm like, yeah, but I can't even pick up on this because I have no clue what he said, and the crowd is like, yeah, Massa, woo, woo. He's sitting next to him like, okay. No clue what I'm doing.
It's sort of like that uncomfortable moment where you just think, this has gone south very, very quickly, and there is absolutely no control that I have over this situation.
Yeah, I just take it back at one point, and I'm like, you know that I still have no clue what you said. One day it might work. Goodbye.
Thank you, Felipe. Thank you for nothing.
Like, it's always really awkward. It's like, oh man.
Well,
have to learn Portuguese.
There you go. Right, we've got 3 more questions to go here on Commentator's Corner. Don't forget, if you want to follow René on respective social medias, they are in the links in the description down below, as well as Butler Power Motorsport. Can't forget about that one, because otherwise René will have my guts for garters, quite literally.
It's all good.
I know. Has there anyone that you hold in esteem as a commentary idol? Who do you not like sort of like take bits of their style, but which voices, whether it be German speaking or English speaking, which commentators do you hold in high respect as an idol?
Won't be a German one because I don't like the German style at all, which you probably hear even when I do German commentary. I try to be as English or even American as possible because I don't like the German commentary style. I think it's way too dry, cold, boring. So probably that's once again a unpopular pick, but I would go with Lee Smith.
Okay.
Which you don't know, probably.
Which I don't know, and I'd like you to enlighten me as well. Because the thing is that with this show, you get to know about the fuller spectrum. And when it comes to commentary idols, René's just absolutely thrown a curveball, which is why I've looked like the glazed look over my face, because I'm thinking, I do not know. So, okay, which is registering what René has said. So, René, please explain who this individual is for the people out there.
Lee Demon Smith, actually. He
is, Demon. Deman. Yes. Now you said the caster handle. I know exactly who you're talking about.
League of Legends Worlds, obviously, he casted on, right? Counter-Strike Majors, he did. PUBG and stuff like that. I met him back then when I signed with ESL again, and we're back in also doing commentary for them. He was one of the few in the talent lineup back then that was willing to pair up with the German caster. As obviously I wasn't really popular as a choice, right? Because everyone was like, I don't want to work with the German caster. They always sound shit. In terms of accent. So I ended up with Demon a lot. He taught me a lot. He's a great dude. We hang out every now and then. Still do nowadays. You know that I got him into sim racing, right? He was always a Formula One fan. He went there as a kid, but he never did racing commentary. He always loved to. So when he didn't do League of Legends and Counter-Strike anymore, I got him into doing Forza Racing Championship back then. With me. That's a long time ago. And nowadays he's doing R Factor 2 GT Pro Series and stuff like that. Because he just loves racing. And I always thought he deserves a chance because he has a great voice, modularity. He's someone that can cover whatever. And that's one of the biggest skills you have to have, right? Something will always go wrong in a live show, especially in studio shows whatsoever. So you need someone next to you where like no matter what happens, he will just keep calm and we can talk and have fun and people will like it. Exactly. And he's great. And I try to pick up his accent to get rid of my German accent. I learned a ton from him. So yeah, he's definitely the idol I would go for.
That's a pretty good one. Next up, the penultimate question is, this is when my guest gets to give me an idea of their favorite moments in commentary, when there's just been like that wow moment, but I always stretch it out from one. I always say that you have a choice. You can choose 3 moments that are your favorite in commentary, and you have to think about the first 3 that come into your head, René. What are your favorite 3 moments in commentary off the bat, off your head right now?
Splatoon 2, European Championship, Switzerland. Next up, there were so many cool ones, to be honest.
I know.
Formula E in general.
Yeah.
Traveling the world with them, that was a ton of fun. And third pick, probably. It's not that easy. Got so many in front, and I tried to pick one that's like a cool story around it. But I would probably pick R Factor 2 GT Pro Series, because I created the format together with the team. The entire series. It's based on the old LFS Pro Series. So I was just super happy when we started and kicked it off.
Yeah, and as you can see, movement in the background once again. We'll leave that in for this particular occasion. Family outfit, home, and it's like when I say I'm recording, doesn't always get listened to. I had to whisper that one quietly. But this is my favorite question of all. It's the final one to round out this episode of Commentator's Corner. So, René, firstly, thank you very much for jumping on board. I know you're going to be a busy man as always, but hopefully at one point I will head down to Nitro Nights when I'm actually in the locality and pop down and see you, mate. Definitely be good to come down there. Right, if you had no glass ceiling when it came to budget, if you had a choice of a car and a circuit that you would drive just for giggles, just for enjoying the experience, no budget, what would you go for?
Race car or street car?
Doesn't matter. There's no budget. So your pick. We've had race cars. We've had street cars on this as well. So the floor is yours, my friend.
McLaren GTR, the street car, the old one. And as race track, Laguna Seca.
You know what's really, really funny? So you're talking about the McLaren F1 GTR, aren't we?
Yeah.
The long tail.
No, that's the race version.
That's the race version.
There was the road version with 1 seat in the middle, 2 in the back.
Yes, indeed.
That's the one.
So we've had the McLaren F1 now mentioned for the 2nd show in succession, courtesy of Jake Sanson, now René Buttler. So danke sehr, René. But a good track, WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. The thing is that part of this question involves me giving a reference the type of car and the circuit. Now, because you've thrown a little, and this is not your fault, because I never tell people previous answers. This is completely on the fly. So in the previous show with Jake Sanson, who's currently in Dubai, he chose the McLaren F1 at Suzuka.
Oh.
You chosen the McLaren F1.
I don't like Suzuka.
And you chosen the McLaren F1 at Laguna Seca. Very, very good circuit. 11 turns, steep elevation changes, and the fact that the corkscrew goes down 5.5 stories in less than 600 meters. So a pretty ballsy car around a pretty ballsy track. So I'm now going to have to counter this with something of the same genre. So the circuit I'm going to go, we are going to go stateside once again. We're going to go to Elkhart Lake, Road America. In terms of elevation changes, in terms of the circuit, in terms of the technicalities. The car I am going to pick is one that I've also picked before in the previous show. And you might understand where I'm coming from with this one. It is the ProDrive engineered Ferrari 550 LM that was raced by Colin McRae back in the day.
That's a nice car. You can't say much about that. Sounds amazing.
But just give us your reasoning behind the McLaren F1 at Laguna Seca. What was your thought process behind that? Just briefly.
Like Laguna Seca is one of the few tracks I didn't drive yet in real life.
Mm-hmm.
It's like due to test drives and whatsoever. I'm lucky enough that I had a few tracks around the world, which is cool. So I would like to do that one. And the McLaren F1 is one of the few cars in the early Need for Speed titles. And although that makes me unpopular again, probably, I obviously didn't start with sim racing because sim racing wasn't like I did Microprose Grand Prix, the old Ubisoft F1 games. You might remember them. They had been great. So I did all of that. But let's be real, probably everyone back then also did Need for Speed, like the first one, the original, not Underground one, the original Need for Speed. And that was all about supercars, right? Supra RX-7 was in there. Back then, that were supercars because we didn't have the hypercars we have nowadays.
Yeah.
And the F1 had a cool video. You remember these? Like the first Need for Speed titles had these introduction videos for cars with a narrator and stuff like that.
I do.
And I absolutely love that. And it's either always the McLaren, which I think came in Need for Speed 2, or the Diablo SV. That was the cover car there, which is an absolutely beautiful car.
Indeed, the Lamborghini.
So I thought the McLaren's probably better to drive on a racetrack than a Lamborghini in terms of like driving experience. That's why I went for the McLaren.
Because the thing is, at least the McLaren's got a very reliable 6.1 litre V12 BMW, and then unfortunately the Lamborghini, they in the earlier Diablos, I think they had a chronic case of overheating problems. So at least you
I would love to drive the Lamborghini like at a coastline or something. You know, it's like that. That would look absolutely stunning, and they sound amazing. But yeah, on Laguna Seca, I think the McLaren F1 will be great.
Well, that's it for this episode 7 of Commentator's Corner. René Buttler, thank you very much, buddy. And hopefully we will meet in person. I will definitely be giving you a phone call at some point when I'm working in Belgium, and I will come over now that things are easing up a little bit more, thank goodness, with the restrictions. But yeah, look after yourself. Thank you very much, buddy. And all the very best on the community race tonight.
Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.
And that's it from us here at Commentator's Corner. Episode 8 is not too far away. So join myself, Alex Goldschmidt, your host. Until then, take care, stay safe. And if you love sim racing, drive fast and have a lot of fun at the same time. Until then, goodbye.